Hey, what's up? I had to watch back the last video to remember what the hell I was talking about. Is sometimes you like if you can imagine like being lost and like some a lot of people don't appreciate you being lost somewhere because like a lot like a lot, is like as tough as a lot of people are, like a lot of people are actually like a little bit scared. Like sometimes you think about like how tough dogs are, but they're actually kind of scared. Like oh no, like there's someone here. Is like what the dog's thinking, but then they act tough, but they're checking things out, but they're actually worried. But it's like you get up to some people like, man, what you doing around here? I actually don't know. I have no idea what I'm here, but I would have to have a good reason to be here. I can't remember how I got here, but I'm sure I had a good reason for getting around here. Can you help me get back to remember like what the hell I was doing to end up here? But it was a good reason why I got here. So I had to go back to that last video because I knew I had a good reason. Like all of a sudden I'm talking about like what is 18 years old? Like what is it to be? What is this and that? But what my point was is that if you look at my life, if you appreciate the development of a person as 18 years, those being very formative, those 18 years, which are more or less formative than the others, I think that that's actually that I actually can't. I don't think you can say which one is more formative than the other. They're different. They're formative differently. So like one would be like obviously it's been said that your first like maybe 5 years, a lot of your real personality is expressed within the first 5 years. Then by the time you get to be seven, your actual judgment in terms of like you get. So when I was up to 5 years old, a lot of me was here, and I knew like what was fun and what was like what was just interesting. That also included like stepping on bugs. But by the time that I got to be like 7 years old, I had at least had one experience where like a man who was like he was a single father of a daughter by this apartment in my same building apartment building that was close to like a certain type of tree that had a lot of box elder bugs. They're like these very slow and therefore vulnerable bugs that can fly, but they don't get around to flying until they've been stepped on. And so but I was kind of wicked to them, and he just asked me like he was coming back from somewhere in the morning, like it's a Saturday morning, and I didn't have nothing better to do. That actually speaks to a little bit of my upbringing that I wasn't being engaged by my parents were maybe hungover or like they were slumbering from like studying like in graduate school the night before, and then you have like and then my mom would have been like tending to my infant brother, and so there you have a young boy where I was always out of doors. Like people were like, "We outside." Man, my little self was outside at like 4 and 5 years old because I couldn't stand being around my house, and I was always looking for something fun to get into, like with the kids in the neighborhood. But sometimes their ass would sleep like on a weekend morning, or or they actually had real life. They had real cool stuff going on, so they were nowhere to be found. So this place that's like a apartment complex for like student families, nothing but families of children of students, to the order of maybe like a few hundred. You can't find any kids to play with, and when you're a kid looking for fun, one kid is as good as the next. Because I was really just using them for fun. I was using all the kids for fun, but they I couldn't find nothing to do, and like in the Southwest, it gets hella hot, crazy hot in the morning. Sometimes the morning can be awful. As beautiful of a day as outside, it can be awful hot and just boring. Like if you don't have nothing to do and you're stuck in the heat, there's nothing to do in your house. Your home is the worst place that you'd want to be. There's nothing bad or wicked, but it's just flat and you don't want to be there. Then you get outside and there's nothing going on, and it's even there's like a playground and even like sports, but it's just so hella hot that that's not cool either. So the coolest thing would actually probably be a water fight about that point, but everyone's ass is asleep, so you're outside with nothing better to do. So you start stepping on bugs, and it's kind of wicked, but it's actually just how it's actually the circumstance is. I'm just saying that sometimes the circumstance can actually lead into something wicked, like even like a kid stepping on bugs that's actually bigger than the kid. But this man came home and he's just like, how would you feel if that was you? And I was mature enough to feel what he meant. I caught his drift when he said that, exactly what he meant, that was some fucked up stuff I was doing about stepping on bugs. So by that point, seven, now I at least have uh, a real sense of what's right and wrong. That is that what would it be like if this happened to me? To put my one book I read said that some of the human experience, like when they talk about the dark ages, like in a lot of wicked stuff, like up until about the point of the printing press, people were actually wickeder in times past because they didn't have the same ability it's thought that they weren't able to conceptualize the experience of another person before literacy. A lot of what's going on, like when young people are reading books, like their first books, like Dr. Seuss, and they're starting to enjoy books. What's so profound about that, and what that does to a people, and part of the difference between a literate society and an illiterate society. I don't mean that with contempt or condescension, is that part of literacy is that it allows us to conceptualize the standpoint and the experience of another person with whatever reference we would have within ourselves for the experience of another person, where you can't actually conceive or perceive the experience of anything that's outside of you. So actually anything you perceive at all is actually you. What you see talking to yourself, talking to you in this camera, is actually something of you, and that whatever you can perceive of me that you can actually grasp, it would have to be you. According to Arthur Avalon, is that something that's entirely pure is not perceptible. So like one of the reasons that a mirror reflects the way it does is because it's actually it's a pure form of substance than most substance, and it affects its appearance differently, so much as that it doesn't betray its own essence enough to reflect our essence, and so it is more pure than us. Therefore, we reflect in the mirror. So what you can actually perceive of me with your eyes is actually my impurities, according to Arthur Avalon, and that might be why we can't perceive the greatest of great. It's not that the greatest of great is hiding from us; is that it's actually that authentic and congruent that we can't perceive it. You see like a really cool sports car, and it's hard to grasp the angles of it. It's hard to actually entirely perceive something that's very aerodynamic. It's a little bit outside of perception, and it's going, like you take like calculus in your higher orders of mathematics and engineering, and it's going between concept and congruence to the point of pure concept that's almost beyond congruence and coming back to congruence. That would be like going to infinity and beyond. That's actually what calculus is. It's going they embrace the concept of zero and infinity in such a way that it lends itself to congruence, and that's some of what you see like in a sports car. So you can't entirely wrap your mind around what a sports car is when you see it, as you could like a box truck, or like a UPS van. Those kind of trucks always look cool to me, like in the little books that I read as a kid with the pictures. I like those kind of like bread trucks. I don't know why they look cool, but you can grasp them in an instant. It doesn't take hard to conceive what a bread truck is. But a sports car is aerodynamic, and it's more so congruent as to go a little bit in and beyond what we perceive as three dimensions: length, width, height, and time. It confounds that when it's truly congruent. And so that's the greatest of things that are so authentic, that is congruent, is that it actually can't be perceived directly. So what you perceive of anything is actually its impurities and its lack of congruence. So what you perceive in me is more so my lack of congruence, and by that reasoning, but anything that you can perceive at all is actually yourself, because you actually can't conceive something out of that's different than you, or different than what you've experienced, because you have no reference of it. It could be in front of your face, but if you had not a reference from it, you wouldn't conceive it. And so but so when you read a book, like even at a young age, when children are reading books, it's actually reinforcing things that they've perceived. It's gradually feeding them more perceptions that they can work with, and therefore they can grasp broader things. That's also part of development. And so you need a reference to perceive some things. But some things are, but literacy is one thing where you can maybe just about grasp something that you hadn't had a reference of it. You did have some form of reference, because you'd have to have a reference to understand the language that they're employing, or the ideas that they're talking about in a book. But then you gradually bring in something that hadn't been part of their reference. So I've referenced some words on this channel like recrudescence. That's like weeds coming back, getting taken down and coming back and coming back. That's recrudescence. That word, I would imagine, is not likely in many people's vocabulary that would come across this channel, and it wouldn't have been in mine otherwise, except reading some books of Arthur Avalon that were written about the time of the early 20th century. But that concept, that word, had been conceived back then, and that reality is still with us. Different things still have recrudescence to this day. But it's just, so in all that I'm running my mouth, I introduced something that's just barely a little bit new, and now you have another reference that you can work with. But so we're always developing differently like that, and some of our compassion and empathy is different being a post-literate society than it would a pre-literate, according to one book. I can't recall what book that was. They pointed that out. But then other points of our development in that 0 to 18 can be equally profound, but just differently profound.